Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heads Up, the weekly podcast of the National Headache Foundation. I am Dr. Lindsay Weitzel, migraine strategist, founder of the Facebook group Migraine Nation, and chronic daily migraine survivor. I am lucky enough to be here this week with Mary Franklin. Hello, Mary. How are you?
Hi.
Mary is the executive director of the National Headache Foundation. She is also co-chair of the Migraine at Work campaign, which is something awesome and something new that we are going to learn all about today. So today we're discussing migraine in the workplace and the launch of this Migraine at Work campaign. So without further ado, Mary, can you just tell us who you are? I want to make sure everyone knows who you are. You work tirelessly for the National Headache Foundation and for things like the Migraine at Work campaign. So tell us how you came to do all these things.
Well, my background is in nursing, and I wanted an office job, so I went to work at a clinic that did family practice, which eventually evolved into the Diamond Headache Clinic here in Chicago.
Okay.
I was at Diamond Headache Clinic for many, many years and worked as a nurse, but for the last 40 years, I was an administrator and edited a professional journal called Headache Quarterly, did a little bit of everything, wore a lot of hats. And then about 8 years ago, I decided to take a position that was less stressful and came over to the National Headache Foundation as Director of Operations, and then I was named Executive Director 3 years ago. So I've been in headache medicine for all of my adult life, which is a long time.
Long time. That's awesome. I've watched you. You really work hard. You do so much for all of us. And so I want to make sure everyone knows who you are and what you do. So let's start talking about the Migraine at Work campaign, which I believe was just launched. Can you tell us what it is and how it came to be?
Well, I know your listeners all know that migraine affects about 39 million Americans. And the population that's most affected by migraine are those in the workforce between 22 and 50. This is the prime time of your careers, and this is when migraine hits usually the worst. So we recognize how important it is to educate both employees and employers. Now, on the National Headache Foundation side, Dr. Vince Martin has been working with Scott Farmer tirelessly to produce a set of educational modules. We are going to pilot those with one of our sponsoring organizations for their employees and staff. And it focuses on why you get a migraine, migraine triggers, migraine therapy, and then for the employers and for human resources supervisors, how to make accommodations for those patients with migraine or their staff members with migraine.
Okay.
And also recognizing the impact that migraine has on the workplace. Healthcare costs, productivity,
right,
absenteeism, and also presenteeism. That is, when someone goes into work, they have a headache, or else they've taken medication, and it really reduces their capabilities at work. So we want to make everyone aware of the impact that migraine has, and also as a side effect of that, reducing the stigma associated with migraine. So that's number one. That's the National Headache Foundation initiative, migraine. But a group of us in the different advocacy organizations recognize the need to involve employers and bring them to the table and talk to them about disability issues and financial issues. So the Migraine at Work campaign is a project of the Headache and Migraine Policy Forum, and the steering committee includes Paula Dumas, who is the co-chair. Paula is from migraineagain.com. It's the American Migraine Foundation, CHAMP, and the Association of Migraine Disorders.
Why don't we go through what some of the challenges are that people with migraine in the workplace are up against?
Well, first of all, they feel stigmatized, so they're not very open in telling their employers or their colleagues about migraine. Their colleagues are walking in, they don't know about migraine. It's just a headache.
Right.
So our hope is to educate both the employer and the colleagues that they have at work.
Mm-hmm.
Give them some accommodations, because making it easier for them to work when they have a headache, or making it a little bit easier if they have to call in sick.
Right.
Many of them call in sick and they'll say, I have the flu, because they don't want anyone to know they have a headache. Or they say their child's sick.
Right.
One thing I haven't discussed is it's not just the employee that has headache. It could be an employee with a child with headache that needs to take time off for their child's headache or their partner's headache. What do they do? How do they pick up their children if they have a headache? So we want to get the word out, educate the folks at the workplace, and also encourage them to make accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
Many people with migraine have sensitivity to light, and trying to get them where they don't have to sit under fluorescent lights all day.
Yep.
Encouraging your colleagues not to wear perfume. Check the odors, because they're sensitive to that. That is a well-known trigger.
Those are big ones, yeah.
Give them some flex time, or let them start later. If they have a headache, and then a lot of the new therapies they can take and they can get back to work, but give them flexible time so they can be a productive member of the workforce.
What are can you delineate for us some of the exact goals of the Migraine at Work campaign?
Right. Well, along with bringing employers and employees to the table, we hope to create this forum for both sides to discuss the issue of headache and its impact on the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
We started out with the formation of a migraine employer advisory group. And that's a collection of employers, experts, and executives who are familiar with headache, and also campaigns about messaging, resources, other initiatives that have been successful in dealing with headache.
Mm-hmm.
These folks are going to help us as we form the Migraine at Work Business Council. We're hoping to have representatives from different industries, aeronautical, banking, healthcare services, bring them to the table and say, hey, this is your opportunity, number one, in dealing and serving on this council.
Right.
And recognizing companies that are good places to work for if you have headache. So it was a three-part. It's the advocacy organizations getting together, then the advisory group, and then eventually the Migraine Business Council. So we developed a web page. It's called migraineatwork.org.
Okay.
And it has employer resources, and it also has employee resources. The employer resources include a self-assessment, an employer toolkit, which was developed by the Midwest Business Group on Health, who happen to be part of our advisory group. Mm-hmm. Integrated Benefits Institute, they have a report on health and productivity impact of chronic conditions, migraine and other headaches. So it tells about the financial impact, the scope of it, how much businesses are losing as far as productivity, and also how much they're spending. Headache and Migraine Policy Forum has a white paper on there. And then Migraine Again has why hire someone with migraine, and then accommodations for those with migraine. And I spoke a little bit about it, about the lights and having and encouraging them to have a quiet place. My daughter-in-law works for an advertising agency, and they have a room on each floor of their office building for nursing mothers. So why couldn't they do that for people with headache or another chronic pain condition?
Right.
Employee resources include a discussion guide, a letter of support that Paula and I have signed that they can bring into their employer. The Association of Migraine Disorders has a list of migraine triggers. Aimed Alliance, which is headed by an attorney, Know Your Rights Guide on how to deal with issues with your employer, whether they be disability or flex time or whatever. And finally, there's a blog there right now, an interview with Kristen Chenoweth, the Broadway star, on how migraine affected her. This was taped at the kickoff for the Migraine World Summit in March. So it's a very thorough website. It's pleasing to the eye. I think everybody would gain from looking at it.
Okay, and let's tell them one more time what the website is.
Sure, it's www.migraineatwork.org.
So my next question that kind of leads into it. So if I'm someone, who's trying to negotiate my job with migraine, with the bright lights and the smell and the sick leave or the lack thereof and the hours that are just not working for me, what is the best way? What's step one? What do I do? How do I go to this website and best utilize it for me? If I'm just used to this as my life, give me some advice.
I would look at the discussion guide because it brings up all the issues you mentioned. Get the letter of support, print it out.
Okay.
Know what your triggers are. I mean, maybe light doesn't bother you, but there's a good chance it does bother people, either bringing on a headache or triggering one. And maybe encouraging your supervisor or your colleagues to look at the website so they get a little bit of knowledge.
Right.
Hope is eventually that it will link up to the National Headache Foundation modules. And that is truly to bring awareness of the headache and answer some important questions about triggers and the need for rest or quiet room, whatever. So that's what I would encourage people to look at the discussion guide, print out the letter of support, look at the other things. And if it gets to a point where you really are having issues with your employer, I would look at Know Your Rights.
Okay.
Alliance.
Okay, great advice. You did mention some of the future plans. My next question was going to be, what are the future plans of the Migraine at Work campaign? Were there any other plans you wanted to mention here?
Well, I think right now we're trying to recruit members for our business council.
Okay.
If someone works for a great employer that they think should be on the council, to write to me at National Headache Foundation or Paula Dumas at migraineagain.com and let us know, nominate your employer and see if they would be willing. A lot of employers, they are interested in health initiatives, but they don't think migraine is important.
Right.
And one of the problems is they look at their bottom line, which means they look at their health claims. And as I said, people aren't saying that they have migraine.
Exactly. That is such a good point.
On the claims, yeah. So we need to raise the bar for them. And we hope that we have, a great membership on the Business Council. And I also want to thank the people that are serving on our advisory group, like the Midwest Business Council, Maureen McCluskey, who worked with Dr. Wayne Burton at American Express, and at Morgan Stanley. They actually had an active initiative on headache. So
wow.
What's been done in the past and go forward with that.
Okay. So if people do, if you just heard what Mary said, if you work for an employer that's really supportive of your migraine disease and you want to nominate them, you should contact Mary or Paula Dumas. And Mary, what is the best way again to do that?
To me, mfranklin@headaches.org.
Okay.
It's my direct email.
Okay, awesome. So that about wraps us up for this podcast. So is there anything else you would like to mention about the Migraine at Work campaign?
I'd just like to say that everyone is trying to work hard for the patients and recognizing their needs. And it's not always about medication or other types of therapy. It's just basic human needs. And we all have to go to work. And I'd also like to say that migraine patients are probably make very good employees because they try and get their work done in a timely manner because they never know when they're going to get a headache. So that if they have a deadline, they need it, or they try to get everything done before the deadline because of the spontaneity of migraine attacks.
Right. It's a very good point. All right. Well, this is Mary Franklin and Lindsay Weitzel signing off of this episode of Heads Up. Join us again next week. Good night, and you have a great day. Bye-bye.